They say hindsight is 2020, and it's very easy to go back and look at things through hindsight and say, oh, this team should have done that. But it's also very fun, and so I figured that's what I'm going to do, and I am going to redraft the 2019 season, and I think it could be fun, and let's just jump into it. The number 1 overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals, they're sticking with Kyler Murray here. It's the obvious choice. Kyler Murray, he won Offensive Player of the Year as a quarterback. They clearly needed a quarterback. At the time, I thought maybe it wasn't smart to move on from Rosen, but clearly after seeing what Rosen did in the second season, they needed to move on, and Murray was absolutely the correct pick. He's probably my favorite quarterback that was in this draft, and he fits the system. So everything just checks off all boxes here. Number 2, again, it's going to be the same thing. Nick Bosa. He won Defensive Player of the Year, or Defensive Rookie of the Year, excuse me. So, the Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year go 1 and 2. So it makes sense you should keep it 1 and 2. They went all the way to a Super Bowl largely because of Nick Bosa, and they have a very good chance of getting back there again because of Bosa. I think that this makes sense. I think you can argue some guys had better rookie seasons than him on the defensive side of the ball, but I don't think you can argue that he is probably the guy with the highest ceiling, and he still had a very good season in his first year. And from that, we're going to go on to number 3, the New York Jets, and I'm going to give them Josh Allen. To me, this is the pick I thought they should have done back then. I wasn't very high on Quinnen Williams compared to some other people, even though he was so good in college. I think Allen, he led the league in sacks among rookies last year, so he clearly is a dominant force. And for me, he's the guy who I think he belongs here at number 3. Number 4, it's going to be Maxx Crosby, staying with the Raiders, the Oakland Raiders at the time, now obviously Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, listen, there really were 3 main guys who were just great last season in terms of defensive ends or edge rushers, and Maxx Crosby is one of them. So I think he's absolutely worthy of a number 4 overall pick, so he stays with the Raiders, just goes a lot earlier here. Number 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and let's have some fun with it. Gardner Minshew to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Listen, one thing I probably should have said at the top, the way I'm doing this is that what I would have done, but also we don't have the knowledge of moves that are going to make the next draft or the next off season. So we have the knowledge of how good they were last year, but that's it. And so I think Minshew makes sense here. I mean, you could go with Minshew or Jones, but at the same time, I mean, Daniel Jones with his fumbling problem and a Bruce Arians offense, that's a recipe for disaster. I like both the guys. I think Minshew's just the better fit. And I think that this could set up Tampa Bay to be successful for many years to come. Number 6 here, it is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones staying with the Giants. We have a few of these that ended up crossing over. I mean, this one could have very easily gone the other way, obviously, if the Buccaneers selected Jones, but I felt like Minshew fit better, and that leaves them with Jones. Again, he had a very good rookie season, not too much to talk about, but I think it makes sense for them to stay with Jones here. Number 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They selected Allen, but now they can't select Allen. He's a New York Jet, so they are instead going to select Devin Bush. Devin Bush had a very good rookie year with Pittsburgh. Many thought that he could have been he was sort of a dark horse candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Plays a linebacker, which is a little bit less important than, an edge rusher or defensive end, but I still do feel like he very good. He was my favorite linebacker, and I think they select him here. Number 8, the Detroit Lions are going to get Dexter Lawrence here. Dexter Lawrence from the New York Giants. He had a great rookie year, which is not easy to do as an interior defensive lineman. I think he continues to have a great career, honestly, and with the Lions, they currently have Patricia, so might as well get someone who can really do a great job of, if they're going to do 3-man rushes, you want someone who can take on a double team at the very least and maybe even win against a double team. So Lawrence is your guy for the Lions. For number 9, the Buffalo Bills are going to select A.J. Brown. Again, we don't know that they're going to end up getting Diggs, so getting A.J. Brown here with the number 9 pick makes a lot of sense. They get their number 1 receiver, which makes things easier on the rest of their receiving core, because they actually have a sneaky good receiving core, but I think they just need a number 1 guy, someone who can consistently win on third downs, and Brown's that guy. I think this will make their receiving core great, and I think I think A.J. Brown is really good. For number 10, the Denver Broncos are going to, again, second time this is happening, they're staying with Drew Lock here. They're getting Drew Lock earlier than they had to select him in the real draft, but, they're getting the guy who showed a lot of promise and a little bit of playing time last year. Again, someone I was very high on coming into the draft that year, and I think that he can be someone who can really help improve the Broncos. Again, kind of second time this has happened. It happened with Crosby, and now it happens with Denver. I swear I'm not doing this on purpose, but it makes sense here. For number 11, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to still select Jonah Williams. I kind of did do this one on purpose. I just, Williams is kind of a wild card, but he was my favorite offensive lineman by a pretty good margin in last year's draft. And there was some good linemen. So I think he can be really good, but he's such a wild card because he missed all of last season with an injury. So we'll have to see how it works out. Number 12, we are going to have the Green Bay Packers get that number 2 receiver that they desperately need, and they're going to get Deebo Samuel here. I think Samuel would fit this Green Bay Packers system perfectly, and we're seeing it because he's currently in a Kyle Shanahan system, which is very similar to the Green Bay Packers system, and he's thriving there. So I think if he was with Green Bay, he could be that number 2 guy behind Adams, and it really would fill up a lot of holes, and I think it would really take their offense to the next level. So if I was the Packers in this situation, and I knew how good Samuel would be, I would have selected him here. Number 13, the Miami Dolphins are going to select Brian Burns here. Burns is a very underrated player. In fact, this kind of feels like a little bit of a steal, but I just think that because, the past few teams, it just kind of works out this way, that they have sort of bigger needs, that the Dolphins can end up getting Brian Burns, really underrated player, had a great rookie season last year. He is kind of more of a sack guy. There are more all-around defensive end/edge rushers, but I think that he would be a really good fit and really help Miami a lot. With the number 14 overall pick, the Atlanta Falcons are going to pick a guy who is currently on their division rivals team, Devin White, middle linebacker. Some people would have had Devin Bush go earlier. Some people would have had White go before Bush. I had Bush go before White. And the reason why I feel like that, there's a lot of reasons. I kind of explained it in my Devin Bush video I've made, but I still really like White. I think he does a lot of things really well, really fast guy, and someone that I think would help out that Atlanta defense a lot, which has at times definitely needed some help. With the number 15 overall pick, the Washington Redskins are going to get halfback that is currently playing for the Raiders, Josh Jacobs. Obviously, the Redskins picked up Haskins with this pick. They could have gone quarterback, but there's not really many great quarterbacks left on the board. They've pretty much all been taken, in my opinion. So with that, it basically means that Jacobs, I think, makes a lot of sense here. They could use a halfback, and Jacobs had a great season, and many argue that he should have won Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. Obviously, he's a running back, so he has a shorter shelf life, but you have to figure for the Redskins, you're going to be, the idea is that either I'm going to be fired in 3 years or we're going to be successful in 3 years, so getting a good halfback, it makes sense here. With the number 16 overall pick, the Carolina Panthers are going to get DK Metcalf. I think they could use a receiver, and I think Metcalf is a very good receiver. I just see this as a good fit. Obviously, they ended up getting Burns, but I think that getting a good receiver here, I think it would help a lot. I think Metcalf is the best guy on the board. Again, at this moment when they were drafting, they didn't know Cam Newton would only play 2 more games for them. But I think that he would have helped Cam Newton, and I think he'll help whoever Carolina ends up getting as their longtime quarterback. With the 17th overall pick, the New York Giants are going to select Tytus Howard. Howard, I thought he had a really good season last year. He probably was my favorite offensive lineman that we saw play last year, and he plays tackle, so that certainly helps. I think he would help the Giants out a lot, and again, we don't know they're going to end up getting Thomas with the number 4 overall pick next year, but even with this, now you could have a good tackle, and assuming they would still get the number 4 overall pick, which is probably not true, but if that did happen, they would be able to use it on something better. Again, of course, that's just all hypothetical. I mean, this whole thing is hypothetical, but yeah. With the number 18 overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings are going to get someone who plays for their division rival, Ellington Jenkins, who had a really good season for Green Bay, started as a backup. He was drafted as a center, actually, transitioned to guard. Obviously, the Minnesota Vikings ended up selecting a center with the number 18 overall pick. That was Bradberry. And so now they're getting someone who, as much as I like Bradberry and think he's really good, I think Jenkins I think he's a little bit better, and not just that, but I think that he has more versatility. So, I think Bradberry's maybe a slightly better run blocker, but I think Jenkins helps a lot more into pass protection. And you could honestly, you could flip a coin, but I'm going to go Jenkins here. With the number 19 overall pick, the Tennessee Titans are going to select Terry McLaurin. Again, they ended up with A.J. Brown, who they selected, who was really good for them, but now he's been selected earlier, so they need to fill that hole, and I think that McLaurin could be a good way to do that. Really good route runner, really underrated. It's kind of hard to evaluate him just because he was with Washington, which was such a mess, so he could be anywhere from, solid to elite. We really don't know in the next few years. But that being said, I think he's definitely very good and worth a top 19 pick, and I think he would fit Tennessee pretty well. With the number 20 overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers are kind of continuing a trend that's starting to develop, as they're going to select a division rival player of their own. Marquise Brown is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I think Brown could be a great fit for that Steelers offense. Again, they don't know Big Ben is going to go down, and Big Ben could still be very good next year for all we know, and having a deep threat to pair with him, it really makes a lot of sense, and he can be a good number 2 guy to Juju Smith-Schuster, who can be that number 1. They can really help each other out, I think. So that's what I would do if I was the Steelers here. With the number 21 overall pick, the Seattle Seahawks are going to take a flyer out on Quinnen Williams. Williams, I mentioned him earlier. He was so good in college, but he definitely had some problems and really has not been great for the Jets. But, he's still young, and interior alignment is a position that tends to take a little bit of time to develop. That being said, I do think there have been a few interior linemen that played a lot better than him in their rookie year than Williams did. So, he definitely didn't have a great season, and so that's why he's falling, but still worth taking a flyer on, as if he can reach his potential, this could end up being not just a good pick, but a steal, but it could also end up being a bust, so it's definitely a risk. With the number 22 overall pick now, the Ravens, they need to fill a hole that's been left, so they're going to go ahead and get Mecole Hardman. They lost Marquise Brown, so getting Hardman here, they're very similar players in a lot of ways, just in terms of the speed. You could even, I think some people would argue that Hardman is better just because of what he can do on special teams, but I think that they're both very good, and I think that either way, I think they would both fit the system well. I think I like Brown a little bit better just as a pure receiver. That's just my opinion. But they're both very good. In Baltimore, losing something, but not losing a ton here. With the number 23 overall pick now, the Houston Texans are going to end up with Jawaan Taylor. Again, they lost Howard, so they need to replace that tackle position. And they're going to go with Taylor here, get a good tackle. And, obviously I believe, if I remember correctly, they traded for Tunsil after the draft. But even if they didn't, they still would have needed another tackle. And so getting Taylor here, fixing those tackles, one of the huge reasons why I think Houston has been able to be somewhat successful is because they went out and they got 2 good tackles, which I think made sense, even though they had to pay a heavy price. So the tackle position, very important. They need 2 good tackles, and they get one here with Taylor. With the number 24 overall pick, this is the Oakland Raiders again. They lost Josh Jacobs. Jacobs was selected by the Redskins, so now they need to figure out somebody else they want to get. And they're going to go with cornerback Jamel Dean here. Dean, I made a whole video on him. He was so unique in the way he played the game, where he had one bad game, but then was just pretty much lights out since then. So I think that getting him here, getting a really good corner, it makes a lot of sense for the Raiders, and it was a position of need at the time, and still might be. So getting him makes a lot of sense. With the number 25 overall pick, hey, look at this. We have another person going to the same team. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to still get Miles Sanders here with the number 25 overall pick. Sanders, he was very good last year in moments. I actually thought he was going to be better because I was very high on Sanders, but he was still very good. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles were definitely a better team when he was playing. They probably should play him more, and then assuming they will in 2020. But getting him here at 25 makes sense, as they do need a good running back for their team to really be successful. The number 26 overall pick here, the Colts are going to get Darnell Savage. Savage was a very good player for the Packers last year. He had a lot of good moments. Wasn't perfect, but definitely very good. And he's a safety. You have to just assume he's going to get better and better. So to get that for the Colts really should help out your defense, and I think would be a good decision for him. With the number 27 overall pick here, the Oakland Raiders, again, they had 3 first-round picks entering the draft. They're going to get Jonathan Abram. They're going to just stick with him. Again, I kind of did this a couple times when someone went down. It's kind of hard to really tell where they should go, but I see no reason why they wouldn't want to stick with Abram. He did look very good in the one game before the injury, so why not just have him stick with him and see how it goes. With the number 28 overall pick, the Chargers are going to get Dalton Risner. I think it makes sense. I mean, he was a very good guard for Denver last year, and, helping out their offensive line, you have to figure it can only help them and can't hurt them. With the number 29 overall pick, I'm going to go with a flyer here. The Seattle Seahawks are going to get Ed Oliver, again, another flyer for the Seahawks. And I think it makes sense because, again, Oliver's a guy who I thought he was actually pretty good last year. I didn't think he was, fantastic, but he was good. And so getting him, you have Williams. You got to figure one of those guys are going to turn very good. And maybe if they're both great, they could have an insane interior defensive line. So it makes a lot of sense for me. With the number 30 pick now, it's going to be another Tampa Bay defensive back going here. The Green Bay Packers are going to select Sean Murphy Bunting. I think that, again, they could probably use a corner, I think, and getting Murphy Bunting, it makes a lot of sense to me. They could really have a great cornerback duo. They don't really, I guess, it's not like they need a corner, but getting him here, I think will really help them out. And teams like to run 3 corners now, so I think this could be a very good thing. Number 31, I'm going to have the Rams select Garrett Bradberry here. Again, he's such a good run blocking center, and they do love to run the ball. So I think it's kind of just a match made in heaven. Getting a good run blocking center for a run heavy team makes a lot of sense, and I think it could be very helpful. And last but not least, or in some people's minds, they're the least, it's the New England Patriots with the 32nd overall pick. And you know what? Again, let's have some fun with it. What's the point of doing this if you're not going to have some fun with it? Dwayne Haskins goes here to the Patriots. And listen, I haven't given up on Haskins yet. I really haven't. I'm not saying that I think he's going to be great, but I still think there is a real chance that he could end up being great. And I think that one of the best ways to do that would be if he got drafted by the New England Patriots. They're kind of the one team I would especially trust to sort of get him to live his full potential. I mean, he is someone who, again, was so great in college. And unlike some of these other guys, I mean, yes, you want to take a flyer out on Williams. If he's great, well, you got a great interior defensive lineman. Well, if you take a flyer on Haskins and he's great, well, you got a great quarterback. And that's just so much more valuable than any other position. So it just makes sense to me. That's what I would do if I were the Patriots. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had fun making it. Kind of just, different, but I like to mix it up every now and then, do something a little different. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.